Only adults in the gallery. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, hello there, my friend. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gavin. Thank you very much for being here. On this channel, we like to cut through the sensationalism and the fluff of true crime. We like to get into the nitty-gritty. We are typically diving into documents, taking a look at surveillance video and listening to 911 calls, things like that. But every once in a while, we have a guest, and I love it when guests are on the show. It just makes it more conversational and more fun. I hope that you're going to enjoy this one as well. We are going to be looking at the case of John O'Keefe, the murder of John O'Keefe. His girlfriend slash fiance is on trial for the second time for his murder. I don't have tons of expertise in this case, and so I've invited on a guest. Help me welcome Mr. Sean McDonough. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gavin, for having me. It's been a while since our last time.
Yeah, it has. How have you been?
Very well. Very well since the other day when we had a brave police officer admit that the taillight that's behind me here was not smashed when he saw it at Karen Freed's parents' house.
Okay.
It was a joy to hear him say that.
Let's, for those who live in a closet or I don't know, under a rock like I do, we were talking before we went live. With my day job sitting in courtrooms all day, I don't have enough time to come home and virtually sit in a courtroom all day. So I haven't been watching this case, but let's start out with like the elevator pitch of where we are, who our victim is, what's going on in the case, if we can just boil it down to the bare bones.
Okay, so we're in trial 2 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. She's being charged with murder of her Boston police officer boyfriend from back in January 29th of 2022. Currently, right now, we're on the defense case in chief. The prosecution rested their case a few days ago. And the trial right now, the way I would sum it up versus the last trial back this time last year is the battle of the experts, okay? And as of right now, we have a very brand new prosecutor on this. He's a special prosecutor, but he's famous for representing Whitey Bulger, a gangster out of Boston who terrorized Boston for decades. And he was one of the defense attorneys for Whitey Bulger and many other people. But he's a very good defense attorney. His name is Hank Brennan.
Right.
But he's been assigned as a special prosecutor. So there you go, you got Hank there. The funny thing about Hank is his forte obviously is a defense attorney. But in this particular realm, all right, I believe personally, it's been a hinder to him in the Commonwealth because in his case in chief, putting on his case, he really did it as mostly as a defense attorney, not as a prosecutor. Now, when he did cross-examination, he's been spot on. He's very, very tough. But like I said, it's coming down to the science and data. They put on some very good, well-known scientists and biomechanical scientists and people. But now the defense is putting their case on, and they have incredible biomechanical people from the last trial. And I just believe it's going to get better. So trying to think what else I can tell you.
Well, let's see. The bare bones, though, I mean, on January 29th of 2022, right, the victim, the defendant, and several other folks were like at a dinner party or out at drinks, something like that.
Yeah, January 28th, that Friday night, they all met up at a bar called the Waterfall in Canton.
Okay.
A town that my parents and I lived in for my parents lived there for 53 years, so I'm very well aware and known to that town. Even though my career took me away, but I always came back every year, twice, 3 times, 4 times a year. And during the course of the evening, a lot of people showed up, mostly a family that is called the the Albert family and the McCabe's. And there was another ATF agent there called Brian Higgins. And then John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, and his girlfriend Karen Reed joined this party, so to say, this gathering, about an hour before the night ended. Okay. And as the night was ending, the homeowner at 34 Fairview, his name is Brian Albert, a Boston police officer of 30 years, invited all the participants at the waterfall back to his residence at 34 Fairview.
All right.
And all the people arrived at 34 Fairview. John and Karen were also invited, and they arrived late. This is where we get a little jilted here, okay? Karen arrives. Her story is John gets out of the car, goes into the house. The 14 to 16 people at the house says John never came into the house. Be that as it may, at 6:04 in the morning, John never came home to his residence where Karen was staying. She was watching his children. Well, his niece and nephew became the guardian because his sister died. Her husband died months later.
Oh my goodness.
And this guy.
Poor kids. Then he died?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So the mother died. 3 to 4 months later, the father died. And John, I mean, quite an incredible person, stepped up and said, I want guardianship of my niece and nephew. Well, Karen, the idea was, Karen was in question. John, I don't know if we were truly invited to this party. I don't know all these people. John goes, oh yeah, her story is John said, yeah, listen, let me go in, I'll clear the way, and I'll come back and give you the signal. That's her story. Goes, according to her, he goes in, she waits. Nothing, he doesn't come back. I think she texts or gives her a call, no answer, no response, and she takes off. That's her story. At 6:04, during the course of the night, she makes these frantic calls. Where are you, John? Why aren't you coming home? How can you do this to me? I mean, 50 plus texts and calls, right? Some of them were recorded, okay? All the texts were recovered.
The calls would be like on voicemail or something like that?
Voicemail that was recovered from his phone. They started off pretty frantic, as you would imagine. Where are you? Why are you doing this to me? And there was a little tension this was January 28th into 29.
Mm-hmm.
New Year's, there was an issue down in Aruba where they all were. And it was about drinking, and some females were there, and, she thought she saw something between John and this one lady. And it was a thing, okay? And she had this animosity, right? That was basically quelling because they were very loving to each other from the videos at the waterfall and the previous bar at this place called C.F. McCarthy's. That was the first place they went. They're loving each other, they're hugging, they're kissing, everything. They go over to the waterfall, same type of stuff. In fact, one of the witnesses today said, my God, I never saw a man outwardly, he gave her a kiss. This witness today said, the way he kissed her was amazing. She even said, I wish my husband would be that way, So there was no outward animosity. But as you know, if you don't clear it up and something triggers you, your mind's going to play games on you.
Sure.
So she goes to bed around, I don't know, maybe 2:30. She wakes up at around 4:30. Now John is not home. And she says he would never not come home because of his young niece and nephew. It was just completely uncharacteristic for him. A blizzard was coming. There was snow on the ground. Blizzard was forecasted for that day and into the night. And she's panic struck. So she makes phone calls. She calls this one person, Jennifer McCabe. Where's John? I think there's something wrong. I mean, she's just very frantic, right? She leaves John's residence. And as she backs out, and this is on videotape, I think we covered it the last time I was with you.
Yeah, I remember this.
Backs in, her SUV backs into his vehicle that's parked, a Chevrolet Traverse, and she strikes it. This is what you see in the video. She then drives out of the driveway and she goes to Jennifer McCabe's residence. There they meet with Jennifer McCabe and another lady by the name of Kerry Roberts. Now the funny thing is, okay, the two women there say, okay, let's go all the way back to John's house. Now, I know this area like the back of my hand. When she left John's residence, she had to go right past where she could have gone down the street back to where she left John. But she beelined it right to Jennifer McCabe's house because Jen said, come to see me, I'll accompany you, we'll look for John together. Well, at her residence, at McCabe's residence, for whatever reason, they decided to go all the way back across town to look for John back in his house. To me, it was very suspect, almost like...
Which is where she just came from, where Karen just came from, right?
Right. And to me, as you know, as the time went on, it was almost like they were building time for whatever reason. So they go in the house, John's not there. Then they decide to go back to 34 Fairview, and lo and behold, as they're coming up Fairview, the house in question is on the left. Karen spots John on the lawn. And that's how they found John. Cops come, EMS come, they perform CPR and life-saving things. Cops come, they take John away. End of story. He passes.
He's declared dead at the hospital, right?
Yeah,
like he probably was dead before that.
The problem was, now in Massachusetts, I guess everywhere, but in Massachusetts, you have to have your body at a certain temperature. And they had to get his body warmed up to 81 or 82 degrees. Fine. The time of death was called at 7:58 in the morning. And at that time, the Canton police, all right, did a very basic, I don't even want to say an investigation, but they did a very bare bones search of the area where John was found.
Let's actually pause here for a second because
Sure.
I'm trying to remember back to our first conversation. Before you became a federal agent, you worked as a CSI, did you not?
I was a sworn police officer in Arlington County, Virginia, for 5 years. The last 3 years of my tour there, I was a crime scene search investigator.
Okay, so you know a thing or two about searching a crime scene, right? Processing a crime scene.
Yeah. I know there's probably been a lot of changes since 1981, 82, but yeah, the basics are there. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so like when you're talking about they're doing a rudimentary or a cursory search of the area, are you saying that as a qualified person? Like, what would you have done in that situation?
Well, as a matter of fact, my entry into this case was criticizing the first responders. Now, this is 2022. You find a gentleman basically deceased on a front lawn. No coat at all. It's 18 degrees. You got snow. These first responders come and didn't think to do a cursory sweep inside the house. The cops knew there was a party there previously. I don't know if Karen had made any representations about how John was dropped off there, and she was highly upset. I mean, if you see the videos, she's traumatized.
When John went into that house, was he wearing a coat?
No. As a matter of fact, he had no coat on the whole night. Okay.
He's just a hardy Northeasterner. He knows that he's going to be inside the whole time. He's not worried about it.
He had a lightweight hoodie, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Underneath the hoodie was a t-shirt. Okay. And a ball cap.
Yeah. My wife criticizes me for that too, but I tell her I've got inches of insulation. Don't even worry about it. Yeah. So he's just a hardy Northeasterner.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Can you hear me okay? I think I just caught someone saying my mic is low. I don't know.
Your mic's a little lower than mine, but what I will do is I'll just pull mine back a little bit so people can turn up. And
I can get closer to the mic. I don't know if that helps at all.
It just clips a little bit.
It was a people say it was a hoodie. It wasn't a sweatshirt hoodie. It was a lightweight. Listen, I saw the videos. As a police officer, as a law enforcement first responder, my first thing would be, well, Jesus, if he's like this on their lawn, what's up? What's going on in the house? Could there be other victims. Now, the problem that we have here, he's a Boston cop. He's found on the lawn of another Boston cop,
Yeah.
As the story goes.
So the professional courtesy, so to speak, was probably extended.
They put a whole new twist on professional courtesy on this one.
Yeah, that's one of those things where if you're an investigator and your victim or your suspect is a cop themselves, that should like tickle a particular itch to tell you I've got to turn it up on this one. I should not be pulling back.
And listen, the industry standards has changed since I was an active police officer. But here's the thing, 2022, these cops didn't have to worry about a search warrant. They had every right to do a protective sweep along outside the residence and inside, just to make sure there were no other victims, right? And I always said, police officers are curious by nature.
Yeah,
right?
that's one of the things that makes them go in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that said, the first two responding officers stood around. I don't believe they even gave any support to John. The two women there, Karen and Cherry Roberts, were assisting prior to the EMS responding, were giving compressions and CPR. The cops put their hands in their pocket. It was very suspect. And so my introduction to this case was literally criticizing the Canton Police, the town that I lived in.
Hey, can I play devil's advocate here for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so this is just, I have rolling up on a suspicious scene, I have exactly one experience with. So I have, I do not have any bona fides here. But one day in my role as a reporter, I was interviewing a county coroner for a feature piece on her. And she got a call and said, "Hey, come with me. We need to go to a scene." And I followed her in my car to that scene. And when we got there, it was a natural death. But we went in there and did the whole investigation. There were dead animals inside. There was an animal that survived and ran out and just looking for water, like slurped up everything it could. The poor man had died inside. The entire time, including the time when it was, and this man was not a little man. The victim here was not a little man. The entire time, including transporting that man out to be transported to a funeral home, the cops just stood there with their hands, literally with their hands in their pockets. And
what year was this? What year?
Oh, like 2 years ago, right? And their thing was like, yeah, this isn't my duty. Like it's stinky in there. It smells in there. He's been dead for like a week, right? So they were just like, I'm not doing anything here.
They didn't have any Vicks nasal rub. They didn't have any Vicks nasal rub in there.
Well, I am like a lay person. I went in and assisted. I literally rolled him off the couch onto the floor, onto a body bag, helped her zip him up, and carried him out. So along with a couple of other funeral directors that came at a call, right? But anyway, it makes me wonder if cops are just like so jaded, so cynical, so I don't know, they've seen everything that they're just, could it just be that they were just like, oh yeah, it's another partying idiot passed out on the lawn.
They're afraid to do their job too, so they don't get criticized. Who knows? I mean,
it wasn't a very good devil's advocate, but I was just wondering, like, is it incompetence or is it corruption? Is my question.
Well, for me, everyone in that scene was bundled up. Snow. They had all kinds of puffy snow jackets on, hoodies, earmuffs. The cops were all in their winter gear. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't see how they could not deduce that this guy had to be in that party. How about this? Let's look for his coat. All right.
Yeah.
How about this? He's a Boston cop. Where's his gun? Where's his badge?
Did they know he was a cop when they were looking for him?
But the problem is, by living in that town, they knew the other guy inside the house was Brian Albert. Also, his brother is a detective on the Canton Police Department.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
This is a corruption situation, not an incompetence situation.
I mean, as I evolved in this whole, investigation, right, it is completely clear to me that Karen Reed was framed. And like I said, I am 1,000% in Karen's corner. I actually, for months, talked to Karen Reed, right? Way before anyone of really came out in this thing. I was the only law enforcement guy publicly supporting her, okay? And by virtue of my support, okay, I had many, many conversations with her. We shared a lot of stories together. We shared theories, okay? And I just knew in my heart that this was wrong. Something was not right.
Okay, let me ask you this part as we're going down that line of inquiry here. I would imagine in your job with the DEA, I would imagine that you were pretty practiced at being lied to by suspects or by interviewees or whomever you were working with, right? I mean, basically what I'm getting at is, how good are your spidey senses about when somebody's telling the truth?
I mean, you got to go in knowing you're going to be lied to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's techniques to determine that. I mean, I've been to all kinds of interviewing schools, interviewing techniques, the science to look at. Ask them 7 questions. You get them to look at their eye movements. Baseline questions. Do you drink coffee? No. Okay, good. What's your name? What's your last name? McDonough. Who was your second grade teacher? And when you're looking for the truth, your eyes will go to a certain area to find that truth. So you get that movement.
Okay.
When they lie to you, the eyes go the opposite direction.
So you got a cute little thumbs up there. What is that?
This iMac, I can do like this too.
Oh, and then it does it? Okay. All right. So in your conversations with Karen Reed over this time, did you ever have any suspicion of any time that she might be lying to you?
No, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, she was adamant. Now listen, when I got in, and when the whole world got in, okay, 15 to 16 months had passed. She was basically all by herself with her defense team, okay? And when I got in, it was around the time that the whole world found out about this later on. I mean, listen, I was here in Naples when John was killed. My father and brother were in Canton. They told me, said, Jesus, Sean, did you hear about the guy that got killed in Canton? He was a Boston cop. And it died. It died. So that was January 28th, 29th, 2022. The world didn't take notice until April of 2023. So a lot of time had passed.
So all of the boring stuff was happening, and then as it was coming up to the trial that would become exciting for everybody, that's when people started.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But
I get it.
Unbeknownst to a lot of people, you had the state, first of all, the Canton police allegedly recused themselves because of the conflict of interest, right? The brother.
Oh, because the brother of the McCabe? Okay.
Excuse me. Right. Albert.
Albert. Okay.
The state police, though, took over the investigation. And the lead investigator, who's no longer a trooper, right?
Right.
He got fired, right? He were friends with some of the Alberts, okay? Listen, Canton is a very small town. And when you're in a certain element, everybody knows you. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, now Canton is bigger than where I live, but crying out loud, I know the chief of police in the 4 towns around us. I know the county sheriffs. Like we see each other when I go to dinner with my wife. I see them. I'm in court all the time, so they see them. But there wouldn't be a conflict of interest if they wanted to investigate me because,
right,
it doesn't. So the fact that the the Massachusetts State police guy, what was his name again?
Michael Proctor.
Proctor, right. Who was fired for his conduct relating to the investigation of Karen Reed, right?
His bias.
So,
text that he wrote.
Yeah. So what was the actual conflict of interest? I mean, he knew the brother.
Okay. Of course, he knew the resident of that house, Brian Albert.
Yeah.
He was very close to the detective brother, Kevin Albert. I mean, listen, he's a state trooper in the town that this crime took place.
They were close. It wasn't just a passing.
No.
They knew each other. They were close.
In fact, one of the family members, right, two things, asked his wife to babysit their kids. And this came out via the FBI, okay? See, in that 18 or 15 months, no one knew this, but the FBI had been investigating the case, all right? And that part, when I found out there was a grand jury investigation in the U.S. District Court in Boston, I said, well, there you go. Something is not right here. And that piqued I knew in May of 2023 that the FBI was papering subpoenas all over Canton. Now listen, Gavin, they not only gave subpoenas to every witness that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had in this case, they gave it to all the cops. And they hauled them into federal court to the grand jury. That's never done.
What was the result of that investigation?
Here's the thing. I mean, it cuts both ways. As a federal agent, the stock answer is I can neither confirm nor deny. Okay.
Is it still ongoing? Is that what you're saying?
In my heart of hearts, I believe. I'll tell you why I believe it. Politically speaking, the FBI took a massive swing, not only at the Norfolk County District Attorney, his investigators, and the witnesses involved in this case. And for them to be hauled in to the grand jury, one of which, by their evidence, got the lead investigator fired, right, because of what they uncovered. That's a massive swing at a very powerful county in the state that you have to work with. You have to work with the state police. You know this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We did as DEA. I was actually a DEA agent up in the western part of the state. All right.
Yeah.
When I was first assigned as a DEA agent.
No, and those relationships matter, right? Those relationships matter.
Oh my God, do they?
Yeah.
Because listen, we learned in the Whitey Bulger case, some of the FBI agents were protecting Bulger. That caused an awful rift between Boston cops, the state police, DEA was involved. They didn't know who to trust. But for the FBI to allegedly back off and say, "Oh, we're done." See, the thing is, a rumor came out, and Hank Brennan and one of the chief of police again gave letters and said, "We were notified that the federal investigation is closed." Well, the one thing they didn't do, and I know that they would never be able to prove or to source, is it who said that? Because the U.S. attorney and everyone under that was in the investigation are bound by the rules of federal criminal procedure called 6E, right? Rule 6E. You can never disclose the fact that even a grand jury investigation existed. Never. So the stock answer is I can neither confirm nor deny. Now, we know that they were investigating because one of the defense attorneys for Jennifer McCabe publicly came out and said, yes, my client has been subpoenaed to the federal grand jury. I don't know why he did it, but thank God he did because it piqued my interest right off the bat.
Okay. So let's see. This is like a giant labyrinth of different ways that we can discuss this case. But I guess you think that the FBI is still investigating. Okay. Oh, here was the question that was coming to my mind. The whole conflict of interest that was discovered through that grand jury inquiry, would that have been discovered through discovery on the defense team? Or is that something that they completely missed? And let me expand that. For example, the Proctor's texts and all that stuff, would that have come out in discovery?
No.
That
came out. There was a process. So once it became aware, once the parties, the Commonwealth and the defense team became aware that there was a grand jury and they were investigating the investigation, okay? There's a thing called the TUI doctrine. All right.
Okay.
And that's when the federal government, DEA, Homeland Security, FBI in this case, is allowed to share the information to where there is exculpatory information towards the defendant.
In fact, they're probably bound to do that. It's probably not just being allowed. They're probably bound.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are. But the process to do it, okay? All right. It's an old law that is utilized, right? But not frequently, because let's face it, the FBI generally doesn't get involved in a murder investigation.
Right. It's a state issue. Yeah.
Exactly. By virtue of that, the sitting U.S. attorney said, okay, guys, I'm paraphrasing. If you want our information regarding exculpatory, this is the formula you have to do. And they did. So in the fall of 2023, maybe the winter, maybe the Christmas 2023 into January 2024, 3,070 pages of exculpatory information was provided to both the defense and the Commonwealth and the judge. Those are the only three entities that were bound in secrecy to this doctrine, this information.
Okay.
And in that document were all these texts that basically the Commonwealth fought the defense. The defense wanted the geofence data of everyone in that house. They got shot down. They wanted cell phone records. They got shot down because the judge says, well, this is a hit and run case. Why do you want a Boston cop's phone? Why do you want an ATF agent's phone? Why do you want the little girl that's a nurse in there? Why do you want her phone? They fought, the Commonwealth and the judge fought the defense so bad that thank God that the FBI did investigate, because if they didn't, they would have never had this information.
Was this the same judge that's sitting over the case? What's her name? Beverly Cannoni?
Beverly Cannoni.
Cannoni, yeah. Same judge?
That's her. That's her.
Okay. All right. So, man, we're getting into the weeds here. But I love this stuff.
The problem, Gavin, is this, you want to do an hour? We could do this till tomorrow. That's how much information.
And I want to get into the trial part of it, because we haven't even scratched the surface of this. But real quick, before we do, let's go over to a couple questions that we have. Brenda B is saying, how many times can this be tried? We're in the second trial because a mistrial was declared the first time. So it was dismissed without prejudice, right? So they've decided.
Well, it was a hung jury. So immediately the Commonwealth said, we're retrying. I don't believe the ink on the mistrial was dry when they said we're going back. That's how quick it was.
Okay. Now, I think, Brenda, the answer to your question is, as long as the case is not dismissed with prejudice, they can try it. They can keep trying it as often as they want, as many times as they want.
As much money that they can afford to pay.
That they want to throw
this
at
trial.
Yep. Let's see. My screen needs to refresh here. Holy cow! We've got a lot of. Susan Lewis says there was a similar situation when my mother passed away. I think she's talking about the anecdote I told you about when I went with the coroner. The police stood there and waited for the EMTs to handle things. Very frustrating. Yep. I don't know.
Police officers are first responders. We're all trained how to give life support, how to check for life, how to give CPR. You're duty bound.
You're supposed to do that. Yeah. Okay. Deidre, Deidre says cops put their hands in their pockets to remind them not to touch anything. Is that true?
Well, when it comes to evidence, you don't want to be on that chain of custody. That's why you put your hands in the pocket. I know Deirdre. She's one of my mods, as a matter of fact.
Is she? Awesome.
Yes, she is. Hey, Deirdre, how you doing?
Okay, let's go to Darlene. Gavin, the big bad CW. I don't know who that is. Who's the big bad CW?
Yeah, that was tough. Deirdre, yeah. Darlene, oh my God.
Want me
to touch on that?
Yeah. What is this?
Okay, so a couple of days ago, the defense see, the prosecution, see, this is the thing. I mean, we got two trials, right? Everyone's blending trial one into trial two, right? In this trial, the Commonwealth, for obvious reasons, did not call Michael Proctor, the
Sure.
lead investigator. He's fired, okay? So the defense put their case on, and they got subpoenaed 4 people who were on a chain of texts that Michael Proctor had involved himself with, telling details of his investigation,
Okay.
and made some serious, horrific texts about Karen Reed, saying she was a whack job, saying she was a C word, talking about her, her condition. I mean, listen, Karen and I spoke about this. I had a colostomy bag temporarily for 8 months. She goes, oh my God, Sean, me too. I suffer from colitis. I have this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I thought that she, like myself, she got resected. I hate to say this, but this is the stuff we talked about. What I didn't know, and I learned via Michael Proctor, he's saying, oh, she's got some kind of poo knot or something like that, right? What I didn't realize, because of Karen's condition, she has a J pouch inside of her stomach. I mean, this poor woman she has MS. She has this condition, right, with her colitis and, whatever. But she has, and this is the thing, she has to have a bathroom to herself, okay? And those cops terrorize her, demeaning things. She leaks poo and all this stuff. I don't even remember the stuff, but this is and Gavin, this happened within hours of this investigator's time investigating her. Hours he took this position. So they subpoenaed 4 of the people that were on the chain. And because of my sources in Canton, they said, Sean, listen, my cousin's on this, right? But they flipped coins. And this one kid, Jonathan Diamandis, he lost. So he had to get on the stand. And Judge Bev, thank God, allowed all the text in. Now, the funny thing is that Dave Yannetti, the defense attorney on direct, said, okay, that's it. You authenticated these texts. You were on it. Michael Proctor was on it. That's it. Well, Hank Brennan gets up and makes the kid read the text chain.
Oh, my goodness.
One of the texts dealt with Mr. Furbush, okay, the father of the Kaylee and Patrick. Now, listen, I knew this. Everyone in Canton knew how this gentleman died, but the kids didn't. And on live national TV, it was disclosed that the father died not of a heart attack, but of an opiate overdose.
Wow.
Now, Gavin, think about this. The next day, you know how kids are, right?
Yeah.
They're ruthless.
Yeah.
Kids are whispering, did you hear what happened? Pat's father died of an overdose. You can just imagine what a horrific thing for that. I had to keep it clean. What he would do. And Gavin, he didn't have to do that. I don't know why the hell he did it. But Darlene, you're right. Horrible.
Wow. That's
Horrible.
hopefully our volumes are better now. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let me
Right.
let me
Can I
scroll
raise
down.
it? I don't know.
No, I got you. I think we're good.
Sure?
Like, I'm looking at the
The
meters.
green,
I think we're okay.
I think I'm clipping.
Yeah, we're both pretty close to clipping here. Okay, so let's just bring this. Let's go to the second trial here. Okay, we're 27 days into the trial. Is that correct?
Yes, 27 ended today.
Day 27 of the trial, and there are 5 days in a week, right? So we are.
Well,
are we 5 weeks into this?
27 days of trial.
Yeah. Holy crap.
So they have half days, they have days off,
Sure.
But when the opening statements happened 27 trial days ago. So.
Wow. All right. So I don't know. Give us the skinny on the second trial. What is different about the second trial from the first?
If you remember the first trial, Adam Lally threw the whole conspiracy in. He put every person that was in the house on the stand. It was crazy. Right? It was great for the defense, but it was kind of crazy. This is a hit and run case. Prove that Karen hit John. Okay.
Yeah.
So they went through this whole thing, which I thought was great. I love the cross examination. Listen,
Wait a minute.
no one does cross.
Is this charged though as a not capital, but like a murder one? As a hit and
Murder
run?
two.
It's a murder two. Okay.
They're alleging that Karen Reed knew that she hit John and she left him to die.
And she left. Okay.
You know? So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So in trial one.
Yeah.
Trial one, they put Albert, they put McCabe, Brian Higgins, the nurse, Levinson. They put everyone in the house, Brian Jr., the wives, everyone involved. Adam Lally put on. For me, I thought it was great. I love seeing everyone getting. I'm going to tell you right now, Alan Jackson. When you want to see a cross examination, you got to see Alan Jackson.
Yeah,
he's the
good.
master. He's an assassin. He is. I thought that was great.
But with Lally, I mean, was his strategy there to just overwhelm? 14 people are saying this and one person is saying that. Is that the strategy?
But I think what happened was Lally was concerned about the third party culprit, that the defense had waved the flag and said, we're coming at you on this. And it was a game, because what happened was, lo and behold, when the defense put their case on, 2 days, 4 of their witnesses and 2 witnesses from the federal government, 6 witnesses, and that was it. For me, that was kind of a mistake, but hey, that's what happened.
Well, they're just shooting for a reasonable doubt, right? They're just shooting for reasonable doubt. And once they feel like they got it.
Well, I spoke to Karen, right? She was adamant. She was shocked. I know I'm innocent. We want to prove who killed John O'Keefe. That was from day one. She told me that. We are trying so hard, and they're handcuffing us. So at the end of the day, the government or the Commonwealth put this massive case on, 68 witnesses for their side. Defense, 6 witnesses.
6.
Okay.
6-1, almost 7-1.
I mean, crazy, right?
Yeah.
And Lally is, his questioning, I covered that case in the morning, in the afternoon, every day. And at nighttime, I did my breakdown, my recap. It was crazy. And
have you actually been in the courtroom for this, or have you been watching it?
No, I've done this. I've done this whole thing sitting here in Naples. Yeah. Sources calling me. I mean, it's like I was back on the job again. I mean, I had more sources than I did as a DEA agent. It was crazy. This whole thing is crazy. I got people calling me as we speak, even today.
Yeah.
But the difference this time, and I agree kind of with Hank Brennan, he's doing this as a hit and run. Right? He had 2 people from the house in there, Jennifer McCabe, Sarah Levinson. He has not called Brian Albert. He has not called Brian Higgins. He has 2 people that that followed Karen and John down from the street above. They were coming to pick up a party goer inside, this guy's sister, put them on. But the whole thing has now been about science and data. And they put on this guy named Burgess. His name is Shannon Burgess out of Alabama. And
that is a very Southern name. That is a Southern name, man. Okay.
Shannon Burgess. I mean, one of these guys says Burgess, but lo and behold, he did a great job on, Hank's witnesses on direct exam were great, even myself. I said, okay, I try to suck out all the biases I had in this case. And I wanted to look at this objectively.
The way a juror
would. I literally hung out in the anti-Karen Reed camp. I really did. There's a famous guy, he's doing it. We were friends, and I watched and I just listened. I said, oh God, how do these people think so differently from me? But it was great. And I said, wow, these guys on direct are great. And sure enough, every time you thought you were going, I said, wow, there could be something here. The cross-examination killed them. So this guy Burgess, his job was to look at the data, right, about certain things. And, like I said, it's all about the experts. Well, during his cross, it turned out that he lied. Well, I don't want to say lied. His CV was a little bit questionable, right? His
curriculum vitae. Yeah. A
his
CV,
right.
everybody is, a CV is basically a, what do you call that? Crying out loud. It's a,
your resume.
It's your resume,
basically, right?
Yeah.
Your background, right?
It's a little bit more detailed than a resume. It's just a fancy
So
word.
they work for this company called Aperture. Okay.
Okay.
On the website, this guy has a Bachelor of Science and all this stuff. His LinkedIn is there. He's an expert, blah, blah, blah. Well, the defense showed that really all he had was an associate degree. And Gavin, it turned out that for 17 years, he's been trying to get his Bachelor of Science. And yet, on his CV, he said he had a Bachelor of General Studies. Now, there's no such thing as Bachelor of General Studies in the world. From the University of Alabama, I did a post saying, roll tide. It was horrible. This poor guy, he, with a straight face, he said, yes, you're right. I've been trying to get my degree for 17 years. I believe it's questionable if he even had an associate's degree, but that came out, and basically they really discredited him a lot.
Well, that is one of my questions, though. Like, okay, let's think about it like a juror would. I've been a juror. Have you ever been a juror in a case?
Never. I would love to be, but I think I'd be disqualified.
Yeah. So I was a juror on a double homicide in Sacramento, California in about 2000, 2001, something like that. And I remember, first of all, you're freaking overwhelmed with everything. Everything. You are completely overwhelmed. They tell you you can take notes. They tell you that you don't have to take notes. They tell you even if you do take notes, you really should rely on your memory, not your note taking. There are all these things. And then when you get into the jury room, you have this, how you were just talking, how do people think so differently than I do? You get into the jury room and you're like, this is going to be wrapped up in the next 15 minutes. We're going to get an early lunch here. And then a freaking week later, you're still talking about this to people who didn't hear the same thing you did, apparently. Right. So when you're thinking as a juror, okay, so Hank Brennan has a witness on. He is expert in something. He does great. And then what's his name? Jackson comes in there and does a cross, and you and I, sitting back here having watched a million court proceedings, can go, oh man, he really impeached that witness. He destroyed the credibility of that witness. But what do the jurors see? And I don't know that they see any of those technicalities. I wonder.
Right. They should be judging everyone's credibility, right?
That should be the number one job.
Do you think this person is credible? Now, listen, I thought the guy was very credible on his direct. I was buying everything he said, right? Once they destroyed his credibility, just about his resume, his CV, he didn't lie when he was encountered with it, but it was like pulling teeth. At the end of the day, you are not who you say you are. How can I believe you now? How can I trust your data? I don't know if evidently this jury is a very younger jury. I'm not sure.
Do you know how this jury is? What is this jury comprised of?
There's 9 women. There's 9 men. There's some.
So they have
women,
6 alternates?
Yeah, they have 6 just in case,
I guess.
Like the first trial, there was all kinds of antics, right?
Yeah.
People who were accused of, being in the Karen Reed side and all this stuff, and people saying they were at bars and they were talking about the case, blah, blah, blah. But in trial 1, and several jurors have come out. As a matter of fact, one of the jurors from trial 1 is on Karen Reed's defense team. She was a lawyer.
Are you serious?
Gavin, it's crazy. If you thought the investigation was crazy, so There's another juror that has been out doing the circuit. His name is Ronnie, very astute. It has been determined that charges 1, the murder 2, and the third one of manslaughter. Okay, was it leaving a scene? I'm not sure. 1 and 3, very significant charges, were unanimous, not guilties. Unanimous.
Where did they hang? What did they hang on?
On 2, lesser offense of leaving a scene. They were hung up on the fact that, I believe, one of the jurors said, okay, John was drunk, Karen was drunk, she brought him to the party. We got to give her something. Crazy stuff like that came out.
Oh, yeah.
Problem was the jury. Now, this is the thing about juries, right? The instructions were not that clear. And they were in there saying, okay, can we separate these things up? Well, they could have, but they thought, oh, well, I guess we had to be unanimous in all 3. So when they were finally, after, they read the whole thing about, they got the Tui Rodriguez instruction, and the foreman wrote a really compelling note to the judge saying, we're deadlocked. We cannot come to a verdict. Well, that was wrong, because they did collectively vote not guilty on the higher charge of murder. Now, this went all the way up to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court denied taking it on. It was denied by virtue of a stupid instruction. Now, the other thing is this.
They argued about the instructions so much.
Yeah, the defense did not poll the jury. I mean, that's, there's a lot of things. If they had polled the jury, if they had polled the jury, then you would have had 2 charges dismissed right off the bat. It's a shame. It's a shame. All right. So
wow,
that's trial 1.
A technicality. Trial 2,
right? So Aperture. Now they get this other guy. His name is Welcher. He's a biomechanical engineer, very, very astute. Okay, here's his thing. He does these tests, and he's trying to prove how the SUV backed in to John.
Okay.
Now this I call him a tool, because the way he was on the stand was just. Listen, he dresses up in John the same exact clothing that John had. The shirt,
for the
hoodie, the ball cap, the jeans, even the sneakers.
For trial?
The tennis shoes, whatever you guys call them up there. And
he dressed that way for trial?
No.
Oh,
for
okay.
For the test he was doing, Gavin, they bought a Lexus, the same exact model, right? The same exact model as Karen, and they did all these testing, right?
All right.
He puts blue paint. My partner calls him the Smurf man. He put blue paint on the right taillight of this exemplar of Karen Reed's car.
Yeah.
He does a slow roll 2-mile-an-hour test that he literally has the car come at him at 2 miles an hour, and not having the actual hoodie on, he has a bare forearm, which my thing is, well, why the hell did you go through the theatrics of dressing up as John if you didn't have the damn hoodie? That's the lightweight hoodie. And he demonstrates that the paint goes all the way from the top of the arm, the forearm, down to the wrist. The problem is, right, it's
at
2
miles an hour.
And he kind of dips and rolls into it. And he's defending. Anyways, I mean, theatrics like that. And, of course, the defense had a field day with both of them, okay? So, I mean.
How many witnesses did the prosecution
bring? God. Geez, I wish I was keeping track.
But, I mean, are we talking dozens? We're talking many?
I would say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 15 to 17, if that, right? Nothing great. Medical examiner, couple of cops, the 2, they had 3 experts for data and stuff like that. So 15, 17, right?
Okay.
And I think the defense did pretty good on neutralizing their testimony. So As you probably know, I got the stupid taillight right behind me. For
Yeah.
me, the taillight was, this case has always been about the taillight. Now, there's the thing about Jennifer McCabe, Google search at 2:27 a.m.
Yeah. How
Now,
long to
John's
die in the
found
snow? Yeah.
house long, right? Okay, fine. That could be someone's thing. It wasn't my thing. The arm initially, when I saw John's arm in that courtroom in May of 2023, I said, my God, look at this. There's no way a car did that. But when I got involved on this taillight project, I did. Now, listen, I've been on News Nation. I was interviewed by the New York Post, CNN. Vinnie Politan sent his producers down to Naples right the month before you and I spoke. They did 4 hours of my whole taillight project. He's going to premiere it, I guess, in a couple of months. I studied the famous video of her backing out and striking John's car.
Mm-hmm.
I took pictures. I took still shots. I brought them to these high-end auto body shops here in Naples. I brought them to Lexus dealerships. And they said, Sean, this particular taillight, the polycarbonate taillight in this Lexus is so, the way it's engineered, if you do have a collision, the taillight's built so that the taillight particles will go into the housing. I said, beautiful. So the first thing I did was I read Michael Proctor's affidavit regarding the taillight. And in that affidavit that he utilized to arrest Karen Read, he said when he went to Dighton, where the vehicle was located, hours into their investigation, right, he said, I noticed that the right rear side taillight was shattered with a large piece missing. Okay? Now, nobody in the world has disputed that there was a crack in the taillight. Karen Read said it. Jennifer McCabe said it. Kerry Roberts said it. Okay? Kerry Roberts said it. In trial one, right, when the state police went down to seize the vehicle, they called up for assistance. That's protocol. The local jurisdiction to meet them. Listen, it was a snow blizzard, right?
Right.
And this hero, Nicholas Barrows, Sergeant Nicholas Barrows of the Dighton, Mass Police Department, was the guy that got called to the scene.
Okay.
And in trial one, now this is crazy because I'm at the edge of my seat, and he's a prosecution witness. Adam Lally said, describe what you saw. He said, I saw the taillight. It was cracked, but it was not damaged. It was not broken. I said, oh my God, bingo. Now, Lally did not show the famous picture that I have attached to this thing behind me, right?
Yeah.
Where it's completely smashed out. No wires, no LEDs, right? Because that was my whole forte, right? He wasn't showing the picture, and the defense rested. The defense did not cross him. They said, no questions. And I'm going, oh my God. Now I get it. They didn't know what he was going to say. He probably would say, yeah, the thing was blown apart, right? But he wasn't questioned. Yesterday, he took the stand for the defense this time.
Oh, okay.
He was not called by the prosecution. I get it now. Obviously get it now.
Yeah.
He got on the stand. What happened? Officer Barrows. And when Jackson did that, listen, it was so theatrical. Officer Barrows, pause. Is this what you saw the afternoon on January 29th, 2022? And the response was, absolutely not. Gavin, 3 years into this thing, I was elated. People were crying because we finally I had validation. Listen, I put my reputation on this thing. I was all over the news. I put this thing on Melanie Little, all the YouTubers, right? And I pitched this thing. Court TV, News Nation, you name it, your show. And I just felt so relieved that we had a cop who had the courage and the integrity to tell the truth. Now, the backstory is this. Why didn't Adam Lally show him the picture? And I have a side source that told me a year ago that, Sean, Nick Barrows has a story. Nick Barrows knows that that taillight was not blown away. My theory is this. Adam Lally knew he couldn't show him the picture, and he didn't, because there may have been some kind of discussion to say, maybe influence him to say something that he didn't want to say.
Which,
And clearly,
Yeah.
he clearly went to the defense and he told his story. And I got to tell you, it was amazing.
I mean, if we can go to just one piece of evidence, the taillight to you is the thing that proves that she did not hit John O'Keefe.
And I'll tell you why. At 5:07 in the morning, when she backs up, everyone wants to discuss this, right? Oh, you see the white? No, there's no white there. What you have is the floodlight from the Ring camera shining down everyone could pause it the way they want. I let that thing, Gavin, if I say 1,000 times, it was probably 10,000 times. I went back and forth. I tried to zoom in. And see right there behind me, my shoulder? That's the right side of the taillight. On the big picture, I sent you the picture, big picture.
Yeah.
It's blown away. It's shattered. Just like Proctor said. The problem is those two pictures behind me is the side of the light at 5:07.
Do you think, I mean, the taillight was blown out eventually, right? I mean,
well, let's put it like this.
So what happened to it?
At 5:07, it was not blown out. 4.5 hours after allegedly Karen Read hit John, because let's face it, right? All the taillight was found back at the scene. Well, guess what? It's right there. That taillight is right there behind me at 5:07. It was intact. Now we know by Nicholas Barrows at 4:14 p.m. on the 29th. And then when it got to Canton PD with the state troopers, Michael Proctor, it was blown away. And it wasn't until the SUV was in the custody of the state police and the Canton Sallyport that the CERT team, the team that was doing the search, that now think about this, the first pieces of evidence of taillight was found when the Canton police, when it was much favorable, right? Think about this, Gavin.
And they had custody of the car.
When they had custody of the crime scene, when they did their leaf blower and they found a clear glass in the snow, but they couldn't find 47 pieces of taillight at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And now you fast forward to 5:45 in the evening, where the crime scene was left unattended, not protected, not secured. And lo and behold, think about it. Dighton, not shattered. We have now perfect evidence from a sworn police officer that said that was not the condition that vehicle was at, state, when I saw it at 4:15 or 4:12 on the 29th of January, p.m. So between Dighton and Canton, mysteriously 47 pieces
blew over to the spot that, So this is actually the part of the entire case that for me, and I've said this on my channel before, even if Karen Read were guilty, the behavior of the police is such that she can't be convicted, because you can't give the police I'm a big believer in incentives. You can't give the police that incentive to frame somebody. You just can't give it to them. No. So if I were a juror on that, even if I was like, yeah, she did it, but these 50 other things that the police did to try to frame her for it, I'm not going to give it to them. That's what I would do.
And now, unlike trial one, right now, the defense it's their case to lose. I don't see how they can lose this, Gavin. And today, Lucky Loughran, the unsung hero of this case, the plow driver, took the stand and said, 3 times I passed by, there was no body. At 2:30, at 3:30, oh, by the way, there was a Ford Edge parked outside on one of my passes that wasn't there before.
Who
when
owns
there
the
was
Ford
no
Edge?
body.
Who is that?
The Alberts.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, one of the legal strategies as far as a defense is that in a murder case, one of the, I guess, bona fide acceptable defenses is somebody else did it. I can show that somebody else did it. So, is that what they're doing on? Are they able to point the finger at the Alberts or at the McCabe's successfully on this? Because that seems to be the strategy, right?
Well, put it like this, right? In trial one, the defense put on Dr. Nelson, who's a dog bite specialist. They put on Richard Green, who's a data guy. They put on this Irish doctor who, I don't know if he was like an ME type, talking about injuries. They put on Lucky Loughran, right? So that's 4 witnesses. Lucky was the plow driver. And they put on 2 incredible biomechanical engineers, right, from ARCA that was paid for by the federal government. And in their testimony, this is beautiful. This is going to come down either Friday or Monday. Those 2 guys, they call them the crash daddies. I love this. This trial is amazing. They're going to go up and say, again, like they did in trial 1, and probably have more evidence to dispute or to attack Welcher and Burgess. They're going to say, as they did in trial 1, that the SUV could not have hit and caused those injuries to John O'Keefe. And the damage on the SUV could not have been caused by a human being. So if I'm a juror, I'm going to say, well, if that's the case, if she didn't hit him, then he was killed in the house. Who killed him? What happened?
Yeah. What I really hope, there's a lot of doubt in this case. There's tons of doubt, right?
Right. And they don't have to prove a thing. The defense doesn't have to. They could have just sat down. They don't need to. They don't want to. They want to prove that John was killed inside that house.
The prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that reasonableness standard is actually very important. It is, reasonableness means that a reasonable person would change their behavior given the facts
Exactly.
that, presented to them. They would change their behavior. That's the reasonableness standard. So on this, we've definitely got the brake light. We've definitely got the texts, how the searches, how long to die in the snow. We've got the dog bites. Now we've got experts saying we can't, John could not have been killed by that SUV.
Right.
I just wonder what's going to happen with this jury. I mean, I'll give you the last word on that. We're an hour and 8 minutes into this, so I've gone over time. But what do you think the jury is going to say to themselves? I doubt that it happened the way the prosecution said, therefore acquit.
You can never trust a jury. You know that. And I'll give you a quick experience I had. I had a case that had 22 defendants up in Springfield, Mass. I'm the case agent. I know this case inside and out. I felt so great when the prosecutor did his opening arguments. When those defense attorneys went down the line, me, as the case agent, I had doubt in my own case. So if that's any indication, well, this is the bottom line. That was in opening arguments. But as the time went on, you got to prove the case. And we did, obviously, and we got all the convictions. But the thing is, you never can tell. And I said, oh, my God, I know this case. I did hand to hands with these guys, right?
Yeah.
But I was in doubt myself. I said, oh, Jesus, if that jury believes, and I'm feeling little wheezy on my own case, what's the juror thinking?
Yeah.
I spent 7 days on the stand.
7 days on the stand on one case?
7 days, all the way up to Thanksgiving, 1989.
Oh my goodness. No.
7 days.
The way that the structure of a case is, at least here in Pennsylvania, the way the opening statements are, prosecution goes first, defense goes second, then prosecution presents their case. Defense presents their defense. They can redo both of those. And then at the end, it's the defense that goes first and the prosecution that goes last.
That's right.
So
exactly.
that
In this
heavily
case, they're going to
favors
be a rebuttal. They're going to have a rebuttal case.
They'll have a rebuttal case, but then when it comes
Yeah.
to closing arguments, it's the prosecution that goes last, right?
That's right. That's
so
right.
that heavily weighs in the prosecution's
Right.
favor. This
Sure.
case that I was in,
and to be fair, they had the burden of proof. They have to. They have
yeah,
to.
it's designed that way.
They
That's
get the burden.
That's
Yeah,
the way it's supposed to
that's
be.
fair.
Yeah. But in a case that I was reporting on late last year, I can't remember. Anyway, I think it was last year. One of the key things in that case was that the defense was saying that the defendant had diagnosed schizophrenia. And one of the things that was really important to them was that when the toxicology came in, it didn't have any drugs in his system, right? So no drugs in the system. Now, the prosecution
Right.
was saying he was definitely taking drugs, but the defense was like, toxicology, there are no drugs. Well, the defendant's wife said he had taken Benadryl. So in the closing argument, the freaking prosecutor gets up, holds the toxicology report, and says, no Benadryl in the toxicology report. And he gets to say that because he's the last person to speak.
Sure.
But I knew, and I would have known if I were on the jury, but I knew from my experience of looking at toxicology reports is it wouldn't show up if it wasn't tested for. And so
Right.
I went in and I did a request to the court so that I could see the exhibits. I went in there. I wasn't able to copy them or anything like that. I went through all of it. Sure enough, they didn't test for Benadryl, but that planted that idea in the jury's mind, and it completely blew apart the defense's case. Well, he's saying that he wasn't on drugs, and they have a toxicology report to show it, but then he's saying that he took Benadryl and it's not on the toxicology report. So the freaking stupid jurors, and I say that with all love and respect, they're
Sure.
ignorant jurors.
Due
They're
respect.
not stupid. They're ignorant
Right.
to some of these things, right? They full on found this guy guilty, in my opinion.
Right.
They got the wrong.
Well, because the last thing they heard
The last thing
going
they
into
heard.
the deliberation room, no Benadryl. I mean, that's pretty effective.
So freaking how's Hank Brennan's closing argument going to be?
Let me tell you something. All right, say what you want to say about the guy. Right, I wouldn't want this guy prosecuting me, or
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to have him defend me, but I don't care. He's a killer too.
Well, that's
And
what he
I
should
said
be.
this the other night in my show.
Yeah.
If Alan Jackson does not do the closing, it would be commensurate of Bill Belichick benching Tom Brady at the Super Bowl. Alan Jackson is the quarterback of that team. Listen, no one can put that summation. No one can put that case together. He's lived it for 3 years. It's got to be Alan. It's got to be. This is whatever you want to. Mahomes, Brady, whatever. This is, you got to have your two top dogs fighting this out. If it's anyone but Jackson, I'm going to be nervous. I got to tell you, it's got
If
to be
Unetti
Jackson.
stands up there, you're going to be nervous?
I love David. He's not Alan Jackson. I love the other guy, Alessi. He's great. He's not Alan Jackson. It has to be Alan Jackson. If there's any less than Alan Jackson, I'm going to be concerned. I have to tell you that. I'm biased. I'm sorry. I'm biased.
No, it's perfectly fine.
You know?
Well, hey, thanks for spending, what are we at now? Got an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you very much for spending the time with us tonight. Hey, what's going on your channel? Tell us what's going on your channel.
Well, as you know, I had going through the motions back in the day. All right, last year, I have a new channel. It's called the Back Channel. I partnered up with an old friend of mine, who, by the way, his name is Ken McGee. At the time that Pablo Escobar was being hunted, he was on the hunt for Pablo Escobar. As a matter of fact, in my opening intro, he's pictured with the two gentlemen that are featured in the famous Netflix series, The Narcos. Steve
Yeah.
Murphy and Javier Pena. Kenny supervised those guys.
Oh, yeah?
Kenny actually, my partner, actually was the guy that flew with Pablo. He actually surveilled Pablo Escobar's family from Colombia to Germany. And he was part of the operation that did not allow Pablo's family into Germany. So they had to take him all the way back. That was just basically the way they manipulated Pablo to get him talking on the phone. And once that happened, the Colombian officials were able to get onto Pablo's radio frequencies, the RF radios and the phones. And then on that fateful day in December 1993, they found Pablo, and he succumbed to his injuries being blasted on the roof as he escaped.
Yeah.
But Kenny, listen, it's amazing to have a guy like Kenny. He's really such a great guy. We actually met each other on the job as we were doing a security detail for one of the most notorious FARC, the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, the Revolutionary Colombians trial in D.C. And we had 17 former FARC nationals testify in that case. We had to protect them, and that's how I met him. We have a great friendship. He was at my wedding, and he's the perfect fit for the show.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I think I neglected to put a link down below. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to head over there. I'll put a link down there so that everybody can go over there. But if you don't want to wait, just go to youtube.com/@thebackchannel8. Sean, it is a pleasure having you with me tonight. Thank you very much for being here, and hopefully we can do it again.
Gavin, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Like I said, I could talk about this case forever.
Well, I think we might need to pretty soon. Yeah, all right. Hang out with me just 1 second, okay?
You got it. All right.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for being here tonight. As you guys know, if you've been on the channel for the last couple of days anyway, today is my last day of the week. I typically live stream 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, but tomorrow my wife and I are hopping on a jet plane, heading east to London town, where I will be speaking with Joseph Scott Morgan at CrimeCon UK. So please, actually, if you're in London, come see me. But I do have some videos that I'm going to be showing, some old interviews that are fascinating, including a couple from Sean from the last time that we talked. So I'll have stuff for you to watch. Also, please, just follow all the socials. If you go to gavinfish.com, you'll get a link to all the socials, including the fish tank. Do I have the fish tank up? I think I do. Fish tank over on Facebook. So check that out. That's where we hang out on Facebook. I'll be posting there while I'm gone as well. Okay. With that, I bid you adieu until the 16th. That's when I will be back live, and that is when we will continue our little journey together. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.